Oh, awesome. All right, so where we're going to be picking up today is on page 89. Page 89, chapter 7, working with others. And I don't know, this is a pretty exciting place to be kicking off. And as we get into some of the later chapters, just like I did with There Is a Solution, I'm going to kind of talk a little about the title of the chapter. Now, what I want to point out is this is the chapter titled Working with Others. And I know nobody here would ever interpret it as working on others, as I need to codependently fix, save, manage, control. None of us have ever sponsored in that way. No, but we all fall into that. Like, it's easy to be codependent and it's easy to want to save them because, how do you not fall in love with us? Like, we are just... Drunks are the best. And so it is a reminder that we are working with others, not working on others. And how this chapter kicks off, it kicks off with 2 paragraphs of promises. So that's what we're going to start, is with promises. And these are powerful promises. And actually, my home group that I typically go to on Wednesdays right after this study, a lot of meetings will end with the reading on 164 from the chapter A Vision for You. But what we end on is these 2 paragraphs. So I'm just pointing it out because I think they're powerful. And so it kicks off. Practical experience shows us that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. First and foremost, I want to break down practical experience. This is not a scientist sitting in an ivory tower or an intellectual saying, you know what those silly little drunks need to be doing? Let me tell you. No, this is practical experience. This is our practical lived experience as recovered alcoholics. And that's a lot of times when I talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, welcome, we're on page 89. I talk about the idea that Alcoholics Anonymous is not an intellectual exercise. It is not about what I think or what I know or what I believe, but it is an experience. And our practical, which is to say lived experience, which is to say, by the way, it works. If it's not practical, it's not spiritual. If it's not spiritual, it's not practical. Like, it works. So our experience is that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking. And that immunity from drinking is important. And what is promised is immunity from drinking. Of course, there's the asterisk that it's contingent on doing this and continuing to do this. But I need immunity because nothing less than immunity from drinking, and I will drink again. As we go through the chapter Working with Others, we're going to do a lot of review of the steps that we've done so far. And so when I was putting out the flyer, I was like, this is a perfect time to come. It might not seem like it is, but I promise it is, because we're going to be doing, a lot of review of what we've learned up to this point and what we experienced in step 1. I speak a lot about that step 1 experience. Step 1 is not that I can never ever safely drink again. That's a part of it. Because of the allergy of the body, hey babe, his name's Babe. I wasn't flirting with anyone, but I would flirt a little with Babe. Good to see ya. But the idea is not that I can never ever safely drink again. That's a part of it. Because of the allergy of the body, there will never be a time whenever I could safely drink again. But the allergy of the mind, the obsession of the mind, the obsession of the mind means that I will drink again. And so if we're here today and we've relapsed, or we're here today and we're struggling, or we're here and we've been in and out, and we're a chronic relapser, and we think, man, AA couldn't help me. What I want you to know is that relapsing is a symptom of alcoholism. And what we treat in Alcoholics Anonymous is alcoholism. And we have a solution for that. Annoyingly, the solution comes as the result of all of the work, so I got to do that. But what is on offer is immunity. The obsession to drink is gone. And what provides that as intensive, and I want to emphasize, we're really breaking this down, I want to emphasize intensive work with other alcoholics. Intensive. I always tell my sponsees, and we got at least 2 of them here that will verify this. If you are not a little bit inconvenienced, you don't have enough people you're working with. Listen, I'm not saying you can't have hobbies. I'm not saying you can't enjoy the delightful weather that they're having in Rockaway Beach. Hopefully that goes over to Maine as well. I'm not saying you can't watch movies if there's a storm in Atlanta. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that I need to be at least a little bit inconvenienced. A little bit. Because listen, what is at the core of me? I am selfish. I am self-centered. And we have all, not you guys, actually, you guys would never know this thing that we have before we're meeting a sponsee. That's going to be a completely foreign concept when you're like, oh, please cancel. But I mean, don't actually, because then I have to have a strongly worded conversation about the importance of keeping appointments, and I don't want to do that either. But that is such a human thing. And so I've got to be a little inconvenienced. And I was working with somebody, or I'll even sometimes explain how I like to work with people, and they'll be like, whoa, that's intense. And I'm like, hey, I was told it was supposed to be intensive. So I can ask myself, is it intensive? Am I a little inconvenienced? And that provides immunity. Now, again, the working with other alcoholics is very specifically what we're talking about, is trying to carry this message, that 12-step work. Please do get involved in service. Please get a home group. Please do that stuff. But man, the real freedom comes in carrying this message. And those of us who've done it, man, if you have not sponsored yet, you are going to think that I am out of my mind. You probably already think that. I know. Actually, I know most of you are like, yeah, we know, girl, we know. But here's the thing. Taking another alcoholic through the steps, through this book, through their inventory, through amends, through this process, that provides everything that I was looking for at the bottom of a bottle. Everything. I don't believe it until I do it, though. And again, that is another example of why this thing is experiential. It's not intellectual. So it says, it works when other activities fail. So when I'm praying my butt off and I'm not connected, I'm writing the inventory and we're not feeling it. Although we usually get there with inventory, but I'm doing all the stuff, I'm doing the means, I'm doing it, and it's not there. Go carry this message. It works. 12-stepping works. It does. And it says, Carrie, it works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. So it is a suggestion. Nobody is going to make you do it unless I'm your sponsor, in which case, but nobody, you asked me for help. That's a you problem. But nobody's going to make you do it. It's a suggestion. But what I will point out is in Alcoholics Anonymous, we don't have an alternative set of suggestions. We don't have plan B. In fact, the closest thing that we have to plan B is discussed on the bottom of page 25. To go on to the bitter ends, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation. Or accept spiritual help. The 12 steps is a way of life, our life depends on it, because it does. That is spiritual help. And all I'm saying is that option B is not looking too pretty. And I have been option B for a while. Oh, it is painful. So it is a suggestion, but it's kind of the only sort of set of suggestions we got. And it says, carry this message to other alcoholics. The message is that from our own experience is of the spiritual experience that is sufficient to overcome alcoholism. From our own experience, the course of action, the 12 steps that allow us to have that spiritual experience. And from our own experience with the allergy, with the obsession, with this illness that is alcoholism. So glad you're here. We didn't make it far, page 89. It's all good. It's one of those things. I'm sure Vivian does not want me to encourage people to come late, but you're not going to miss much. We're not going to get far in the book. So carry this message. And that's the same message that is carried in the book, this message to other alcoholics. And here is something that is incredible. It says, you can help when no one else can. You can help. No one else. And no need to apologize. We're just glad you're here. Page 89. So it's one of those things With alcoholics, the best doctors, the best psychologists, the best psychiatrists, the best spouses, the best of the best of the best is not enough. But we are people who have been specifically created to be of love and service to alcoholics. There is a drunk that only you can reach. How powerful is that? You see, I come here and I think I am the biggest pile of garbage. And it is hot flaming garbage that I think I am when I'm here. And I get to experience a transformation within myself. And I get to be a person who has my hand out to help others when it could not or does not seem like it could be possible. Man, that's what's on offer. You can secure their confidence when others fail. You can. You get to help when no one else can. And it says, remember, they are very ill. And that can be difficult to remember. It can be easy to get, not you guys. You guys would never get annoyed with a sponsee. And I would never get annoyed with any of mine. But none of us would have experienced some frustration or perhaps ever have to do any 4-column inventory in a sponsee. Unheard of. But it's important to remember that when we are working with alcoholics, that they are alcoholic, which means that they've got an illness that is, to put it mildly, frustrating. We do absurd, incredible, tragic things. And we think we know best. It's like, I just burnt my life to the ground for the umpteenth time, and let me tell you my plan, It is buckets of evidence that my plans lead to flaming garbage. I'm not good at it, but I'm no, I got an idea. I know what's best, right? So it's remembering that they are very ill. And that when we're working with somebody, that what we're up against is an illness over which that no human power is sufficient. And so, man, it's also not on us. I can't fix them. I can't save them. Welcome. We're on page 89. We didn't get that far. It says, life will take on new meaning. And I don't know about you, but my life was pretty meaningless when I got here. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. There's times where we talk about you got to give it away to keep it. And that is true. But so often, I've got to give it away to really get it. To watch people recover. Again, there is nothing more incredible in my life than to watch a sponsee who is beaten and broken and sometimes sobbing and sometimes a little difficult. Nobody here. But to watch them go from that despairing, trembling, nervous wreck to begin to see the light come on in their eyes, a change that comes over them to awaken to who they really are inside and to catch this thing where they can't wait to carry this message to somebody else. Man, that is the best. We don't talk so much about this in Alcoholics Anonymous, this phraseology, but I call it the God dope. Everything that I was looking for in the bottle, that's what it is. Yeah. It's maybe singleness of purpose. That's why we don't call it the God dope in AA. But that's what I'm after. It is the best thing. To be a small part of a miracle that I could not have created within them. And then they're carrying that on. And actually yesterday was Founders Day. So 90 years from the date that we celebrate as Dr. Bob's last drink. I don't mean to kick any metaphorical puppies, but it might have been actually the 17th. Although I don't have any history husbands here, so I can get away with the historical inaccuracies. But just in case any of the history husbands catch wind, I'll be accurate. But here's the thing. There's that, we celebrate Alcoholics Anonymous from the date of the first successful 12-step call. Not when we had one, but when we had two. And from there on, they were working tirelessly trying to carry this message to others. And I saw this quote because, Founders Day. It was attributed to Bill, but that doesn't mean he actually said it. Because, listen, there are a lot of times people will say, Bill said this, because they just want it to fit. He gets misquoted a lot. So I don't know if he said that. But I do know that Bill Wilson was very loosey-goosey with the title of founder. He would give, you're a founder, like Oprah in the 90s with cars. Like, you get one, you're a founder. Henrietta Seiberling, you're a founder. This person, you're a founder. And so I saw this quote, and it might not be attributed to him, but it's the idea is that every single successful 12-step is creating Alcoholics Anonymous in their lives. We get to be founders in the lives of others and the people that they help. Now, I know I'm using the phraseology of successful 12-step call. And in this context, we're talking about the people that recover. But in my experience, I've never had an unsuccessful 12-step call. I have never been unsuccessful in working with others. And now I don't have 100% batting average. Sports. I'm not 100% successful. But here's what has happened is every single time I've done that, I have been able to stay sober. But it's not just about me. Because sometimes we stop there. I stay sober. And man, I can't live on just what can I get. But it's what can I give? Every time I work with somebody else, I deepen my experience with working with others. I deepen my experience with God and working these steps, and I have more tools and skills and abilities to carry the message to the next person. Nothing is wasted here. And it says to watch loneliness vanish. And welcome, we're on page 89. When we talk about loneliness vanishing, man, that is powerful. A lot of times I reference this when I do my big book bounce around on loneliness. You see, loneliness has nothing to do with a sense of separateness from other people. And I talk about this quite a bit. We know this to be true because anyone here ever feel absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in a stadium full of other people? Anyone here ever feel lonely and alone in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? I mean, these are our people and we feel that way. Anyone here ever feel lonely and alone in the middle of a relationship? And I don't know about you, I know what it's like to feel absolutely lonely and alone in the middle of an act of intimacy. Loneliness has nothing to do with a sense of separateness between me and other people. It has everything to do with a sense of separateness from God. That is what loneliness is. And we treat that in Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're here today and you're like, man, I am feeling lonely, the answer is not on Tinder. The answer is in a profound experience of God. And I can't tell you how annoyed my sponsees are when I point that out. They're like, oh man, what do you mean not on Tinder? I know, I'm as shocked as you are. Or any other dating site you use. But that's to watch. So the miracle that is happening in this promise is not just the loneliness within myself that falls away, that dissipates. But I get to see that loneliness vanish in others. And then it vanishes in others. Man, that is the thing. Welcome, page 89. That's where we're at. It says to see a fellowship grow up about you. And when we talk, we'll get to, probably not soon, but we're going to get to the chapter, A Vision for You. And when we get there, that vision for you, it's going to talk about the fellowship, but this is the fellowship we're talking about. The fellowship that is created working intensively with other alcoholics and watching the light come on within them. That fellowship, to see that get created, man, that is incredible. To have a host of friends. And many of us didn't have many of those left by the time we got here. This is an experience you must not miss. You don't want to miss out on it. This is the best. It's the best. Man, AA is far more than just don't drink. And it's far more than like just go to meetings. I can't just go to meetings. I can't just not drink. There is a way of life here that is incredible and it's available to all of us. It says, we know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. the bright spot of our lives is the connections that we get to make. Now, keep in mind, if you're new, you're like, oh gosh, you're telling me like a dingy church basement with like the coffee that's like, oh, it's so strong and it's got the creamer that won't stir in. No matter how hard you try, it just floats on the surface. Or like that's gonna, oh no, that's the bright spot of my life. That sounds depressing, but no. Like it is, but it's not depressing. You know, what is happening is bearing witness to miracles, bearing witness to transformations that were absolutely impossible. And that becomes the bright spot of our lives. Not that we don't have lives out. I mean, I don't really, but other people, that doesn't mean you can't have lives outside. It's like when I joke about hobbies, I struggle because I'm like, I don't know what a hobby is. But you get to have a full and beautiful life. But the light of our life begins to emanate from when we work with others, the bright spot of our lives. And then what we're going to get into is, how do we work with others? How do we carry this message? Now, a lot of times when we're going through some of the later chapters in the book, what we experience is this idea that we'll go through 2 wives and 2 wives, it's outdated and it's actually incredibly useful, but we approach it only through the lens of its title. But an interesting thing, and please don't think that I want to change anything in the book, I'm not trying to do that, but working with others, there's elements of working with others that are far more antiquated than we would ever see in 2 wives. And please stick with us as we go through that chapter and have a powerful experience with it, a brand new experience with it. So what we're going to get into in this next paragraph is, how do I find people to work with? Where do I find newcomers to help? Where do I find sponsees? Now, I will point out, we've got none of the history husbands, and I don't think we have any of the pedantic people, but just in case somebody's like, wait a minute, the word sponsor is not found in the first 164 pages. And I will say you are correct. It is not, but I am using that language because the job description is all over it. And when I use that word, we all know what I'm talking about. So where do I find a sponsee? So it goes on to say, perhaps you are not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. Well, in 2025, that's not fully true. We can listen, it's 2025. We can log on to a meeting. We don't even got to put pants on as long as you keep the camera up. I always want to keep that boundary. We can find people, alcoholics who want to recover. A really great place to find them is in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. They tend to be there. Lemon squeezy. But keep in mind, this book was written and published, written in 37-38, published in 1939. And I might not know a single other sober alcoholic. I might only have a copy of this book and been trying to read it alone and follow its directions. And so this is what early 12-step work looked like. So perhaps you are not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. You can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. And with the hospitals, this is probably before they had some HIPAA legislation. I don't think you're allowed to do that now. But it's these places where alcoholics would be in contact. So if you didn't know anyone, we don't have a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have to go to doctors, to hospitals. They get into contact with alcoholics all the time. Priests, ministers, those are often people who would be very sympathetic to what we're doing. And they would, there was more of a church culture. So they would know what was happening and that the people were struggling. And in 2025, we don't as an individual have to do that. We don't have to go and reach out to priests or, anything like that. But the reach of Alcoholics Anonymous does. The hand, maybe not my literal hand reaching out to doctors, but the hand of Alcoholics Anonymous does. And so what we're seeing is some of our subcommittees and service bodies that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous. So even though as an individual, I don't have to go to a church or hospital, ministers, churches, hospitals, treatment centers, the public, the general public, the professional community, people who work in human relations, they all need to know that Alcoholics Anonymous exists. And so the public relations, hospitals, institutions, cooperation with the professional community, those are all subcommittees that enable alcoholics who might have a problem to come in to Alcoholics Anonymous. So even though we don't have to necessarily go to the hospital, the hand of AA has to be there. And so it's a reminder, if we're looking for service opportunities, that could be a beautiful place to connect. And sometimes when I'm working with sponsees and I'm on them, they know I am on them to get sponsees. And I handhold that process, by the way. But I talk about, like, go do phone monitoring, go do H&I, like, go speak in a treatment center for hospitals and institutions, go get involved, because that's a beautiful way to get connected with people. But again, one of the most easy, because of the selfless service of people who are involved in service at that level, people come to AA, and most of us don't even have to work that hard, you know? But it is a, like, ooh, maybe a call to be of service in those areas. So it says, they will be only too glad to assist you. There are a lot of people who want to help people like us. It says, don't start out as an evangelist or a reformer. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. And I want to contextualize this line, as well as some stuff that we're going to see later in the book. What happened in the United States was there was an amendment to the Constitution. There was the 18th Amendment, which made the sale of alcohol illegal. And then that was repealed. So they took away that change to the Constitution. And so during that time, and even after that time, the idea about whether or not alcohol should be legal or illegal in the United States was a hotly contested topic. And you can think of, like, hotly contested topics. Like, it was very, very divisive. And so some of the suggestions and some of the things that we're going to see come out of that time and that era and that turmoil of history. So that's why it says, don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. A lot of prejudice exists. But also too, like, people don't want somebody to be like, let me save you, like that. But that's really what it's referring to. It's referring to the climate at the time. It says you will be handicapped if you arouse it. So if we create that, like, alcohol is bad, and then, like, the heat of that debate, whoa, we're just not going to be able to help people. And that's what we're here to do, to help. Ministers and doctors are competent, which is so nice we gave them the okay, you know, us lowly alcoholics. We're like, you guys are doing okay, are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish. But it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. Cooperate, never criticize. Now, that idea, like, the best doctors, the best psychologists, the best psychiatrists. And there are wonderful people in all of the helping professions. But as an alcoholic who has recovered, again, we get to help those that nobody else can help. How powerful is that? And what a responsibility that is, that I get to have my hand out to be an agent for God, for somebody who will not find an answer. You know, it's a powerful responsibility. We are not God, so we can't fix them, save them, change them, or anything like that. But we get to do that. And it says to be helpful is our only aim. And that is a thread that we've seen throughout the book. It picks up a lot in these later chapters, but we saw it in those early, the preface and the forwards, that our goal is to be helpful, to be useful. We are not here to fix, manage, save, or control. So to be helpful is our only aim. And it says, when you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. And one of the things that I noticed as I was going through the chapter working with others is it's kind of like laid out like a flow chart. You know, it's kind of like, do you have an alcoholic? If no, do this. If yes, do this. And because I don't have a lot of spare time, but when I do get a little bit of spare time, I do things like this. So what I did was I made it into a flowchart because I'm fun at parties. And so it starts, I never know which, I think it reverses me when I put the screen share up. So at the very beginning, it says, do you have an alcoholic prospect, or do you have a prospect? Do you got somebody to work with? I'll send this to you guys after. I'll make sure I put it in the chats. Do you have a prospect? If no, find one. So you can find one by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, hospitals. And in modern 12-step, H&I, PI, attending meetings. Now, here's one of the things that I will say. To find somebody to work with in 2025, if all I have to do is go to a meeting, then at the very bare minimum, what I need to do is I need to approach them. I need to approach them. You know, like, they don't know what they need. They don't know what they want. They've already asked for help by showing up. I can make it easy. Not even easy. I can match their effort. They've showed up. I can get their number. I'm big on that. I try not, I'm imperfect. I'm human. But I always try to get their number so that I can reach out to them. Because actually, I'll throw it out there. Many of us have had that experience where we put our number on meeting lists again and again and again, or thrown our number into the chat. I've been sober 15 years, and I've probably gotten about one a year, one a year on average from just putting my number on a thing. That's not effective, and I want to be effective. So I've got to go and I've got to reach out to them. And again, so yeah, go to a Zoom meeting, get their number, send them a message, get their number, reach out to them. One of the things that I do for my sponsees, and they're like, no, Paige, you do this to us, not for us. But I will keep an eye out for newcomers, and I will grab them and connect them with sponsees. Because I know it's hard when you're new, it's overwhelming. And it's also hard when you're new to sponsoring. Like, and I try to bridge that gap. So it's one of those things where, yeah, like, and in 2025, there's some other creative places that we can go. We can, go, like, there's WhatsApp groups, and WhatsApp groups are not meetings, but sometimes there's people there that are asking for help, and I can make it a connection. One of the things that I've tried, and to be transparent, I've not had a lot of success at that, but sometimes there's some Facebook groups, and there's people relapsing, and I always like, hey, if you're interested in working the 12 steps, like, you don't have, and I tried to do it that way. So I've got to make the effort. We've got to make the approach to the newcomer. So if I don't have a prospect, no, I've got to go get one. And those are some suggestions to go and get one. Another really great suggestion for getting a sponsee is to do lead shares, which is the worst if you're like, I don't like public speaking. I didn't either when I got here. And now he can't shut me up. I have to keep an eye on the time. It's a whole thing. I didn't speak for like the first 9 months I got here. And now I should be a member of Al-Anon and on and on and on. You know that one? That's not the sister fellowship. That's a distant cousin. I'm joking. So doing lead shares and talking about the steps and talking about the actions of the steps, like nailing that is often a beautiful way to get sponsees that are interested in doing the work. And here's the thing, a little tip, a little trick. If you're looking for a sponsee and you're asked to share at a meeting, you can mention that in your share. Hey, I'm looking for sponsees. If you're struggling, I'd love to help you. Let me know. I'll make it easy on you. So these are some ways to help. But yes, always approach the newcomer. Always reach out to them. And when I'm in person, I have my, because I make things. So I've got the cycle, and not the cycle. That's not the cycle, but I have stickers of the cycle, and I'll hand it out. Do you have this? And it's oh no, I haven't seen this before. Wonderful. It's yours. It's a sticker. You can put it in your book, and then we can talk about the cycle of alcoholism. We can talk about alcoholism, and it's a beautiful conversation starter. And some of you guys know I've mailed out some stickers. I think we have a postal strike, but when that gets sorted, I'll mail you out some stickers if you need any to hand out. Somebody was telling me we had a postal strike. I live here and I didn't notice. I wasn't paying attention. Yikes. So if I do, let's say I do have, do I have an alcoholic prospect? All right. If yes, Okay, so when you discover you have an alcoholic prospect, find out all you can about him. So does he want to quit drinking? So we're going to talk about finding out all we can about him. Does this person want to quit drinking? And if the answer is no, it says if he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. We are not here to convince anyone to get sober or try to force them to get sober. If they want it. And that's the thing is, I've been in a relation as an alcoholic. I've been in a relationship with an alcoholic, and I tried to drag that man into sobriety, and he was not having it. And I was like, he was kicking and screaming. I joke that I'll drag my sponsees through the steps, but as soon as they start kicking and screaming, I let go. That man was not having it, and I'm like, no, you've got to do it. But the more I pushed it, the less receptive he was. So my job isn't to convince anyone to do the steps. That's not my job. To convince them to get sober, to convince them of any of that. That is not my job. My job is to give them the information to allow them to make that decision, though. But if somebody's like, no, I don't even want to quit, don't waste time trying to persuade them. Don't waste time. In Alcoholics Anonymous, it's in the 9th tradition. It talks about, in AA, we have 2 disciplinarians. We need no other. The first disciplinarian is great love, and the other is great suffering. And alcoholism has a job. Alcoholism's responsibility is great suffering. To beat me into a state of reasonableness. To tear away everything worthwhile in my life so that I'm out of options. And that I can say, man, I need some help. That's alcoholism's job. My job is great love. And what great love looks like is it looks like showing up honestly with this is what alcoholism is. This is what it looks like. If you want to get well, I will do anything to help. But if they're not interested, I let them have the dignity of their own experience. I let them find out what they need to find out. So it goes on to say, don't waste time trying to persuade them. You may spoil a later opportunity. Nobody responds well to being nagged. No one, not non-alcoholics either. You go to an Al-Anon conference, you try to nag them. They don't like it. Nobody likes it. Human beings don't like being nagged. And you can ask yourself, have you ever been nagged into permanent change? No, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'll do it out of spite for a bit, but it does not work. And it says this advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they're dealing with a sick person. Again, we're emphasizing that the alcoholic is sick. Not bad, not weak, not immoral, but up against an illness over which they could not have any power. You see, when an alcoholic relapses, it is not what happened. What happened is inevitable. An alcoholic to have alcoholism is to relapse. It is inevitable. I will relapse unless I have a spiritual awakening. So to meet that with that type of understanding, they are sick. They don't have the ability to control or to choose whether they will drink or not. It goes on to say, if there's any indication he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Now, here's the thing. In 2025, if I run into an alcoholic at a meeting, I am not going to be like, hey, let me talk to your partner. Let me talk to your spouse. No. But the context is, in the 1930s, the 1940s, I'm trying to find alcoholics to work with, and I'm going to find them first through their family. So I want to reach out to their family and get information. In 2025, we can ask them directly. So yeah, don't think it's like, hey, what's your mom's number? I got to give her a ring. We don't have to do that. But this is what I can get and speak about. When I work with people, it's often very helpful to have this introductory conversation. And in that introductory conversation, what we're trying to see is get an idea of his behavior. So what we want to do is, like for me, when I'm working with people, one of the questions, or even when I'm trying to connect with people with sponsees, my sponsees would be like, girl, you don't ask as many questions as you should. I know. I'm just like, go work with them. Wee! But I try to ask things like how long, are you sober? If not, that's okay, because we'll just talk about, next steps for that. But if they are sober, how long have they been sober? And part of it is to say, like, if they've been relapsing, what is the length of time that they've been able to stay sober? That can be important because that can give us the window with which we can work. If somebody's like, I can make it about a month, that tells us that we have at max about a month to get them through the steps. If they can't make it a week, that tells us we have at max a week to get them through the steps. So that is information I want to get to see how quickly I need to move with them. So that's that idea of his behavior. Also in the behavior, it can be helpful to get an understanding of, are there other substances involved? Is there some mental health stuff that's involved? Again, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but it is helpful to know, especially if we see a change in behavior, if we know that there's already a condition, like that can just be helpful. So it says, get an idea of his behavior, his problems, and we can kind of see what's driving this person to seek help. Whether they've burnt it to the ground, and just see what's going on for them, like what's going on. And I sometimes do things a little counterculture to kind of traditional ways of doing things. So a lot of times when I'm working with, I didn't used to do this. A lot of times I'd be working with people, and there's a bit of a culture where I live where it's like you call your sponsor every day for the first 7 days, and if you miss a day, you start over. And if you don't do that, then we talk about whether you're committed, that sort of thing. And I did that because that's what my sponsor did with me, and I didn't know any different. But I found that not helpful, because the people that would call every day would want to talk only about problems that they weren't wanting a solution to. And maybe you guys haven't experienced that, but when you're held hostage by somebody on the phone and it's like, and it's like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, we can deal with that when we get to step 4. But also I came from a culture where you meet your sponsor once a week for an hour. Man, I don't do that anymore. And it's not to say that that's bad or that's wrong, but I didn't find that effective. And I'm talking a little about this because I found that I have never been sponsored in the way that I sponsor others. I've never had a sponsor take me through the book line by line. I've never had a sponsor sit with me as I write inventory. I've never had a sponsor give me any actual practical, here's how to make this amends, ever. I've had a sponsor tell me to, but not how to. So that is how I do. I offer, I help, I handhold the heck out of it. I'm going to take your hand. It's going in God's hands. Boop. That's what I do. Handholding. But just that idea that over time, my sponsorship style has changed because I stopped doing things that I found for me to be ineffective. So I don't have them call me every day for the first 7 days. We work together every day we work together like as close to every day as we can to get through it as quickly as we can. That's how I like to do. See, I didn't lie when I said I was intensive, like, I'm intense. But I found that has been effective, and that's why I do it. But also there are times where, you're in step 1, maybe you're going through line by line. I love to do that with sponsees because it prepares them to sponsor. But, and man, there's life and things are happening. And what I do is what I like to call, I maybe don't need to screen share right now as I'm talking. I'm on a tangent. I maybe don't need to screen share because the tangents aren't on the flow chart. But I do this thing, and the Americans are going to get it. It's called calling an audible. Sports. So it's a football thing. When the coach gives them a play, and the play is this, and the quarterback goes to the line of scrimmage, and he sees something in the defense, or she sees something in the defense. It's a women's league. And the quarterback says, I'm going to change the play. And so I do that. So if somebody is coming to me and they're brand new, and maybe we're in step 1, and they're like, my spouse, my partner, my job, chaos. I used to be like, okay, let's hold on. Let's get to step 4 and we'll deal with it. I don't now. I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I'm just sharing with you that I've started doing this because it's effective. Is that I'm like, okay, let's write some inventory on it right now. like right now. And I take them through the 4-column resentment inventory right now. And I'll let you guys know a little secret. There's no AA police. They're not going to arrest you. But here's another little secret. Actually, they might be coming for me. But here's another little secret. If they're not going to do that inventory now, they weren't going to do it in step 4 anyways. I found that to be true. So I'm throwing it out there. Like, don't worry about it. So I want to get an idea of his problems, the seriousness of his condition. So I want to see, how quickly do we have to move? If this person is drinking, they might need to be medically detoxed. Like, I need to get that type of information. And it says, and his religious leanings. Now, I will ask a little about that, but just as important as the religious leanings, in 2025, I find it is to ask about, have you been to Alcoholics Anonymous before? Have you done any 12-step before? Have you gone to rehab before? Have you gone to therapy before? I want to get an idea of the things that they've done, the things that they've maybe done. Have you had a sponsor? What was that like? Have you done some steps? Where did you get to with that? That sort of thing. That can be very vitally helpful information. So get an idea of his behaviors, his problems, his backgrounds, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. And here's why. You need this information to put yourself in his place, to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables are turned. So if y'all, I'm from Canada, we don't yell, but I love to yell. I love it. It's such a great expression. But if y'all are a fan of the St. Francis prayer, the prayer that's found in step 11 and the 12 and 12, in it talks about seeking to understand rather than to be understood. And that's what we're trying to do. I'm not trying to get the sponsee to understand me and that. I'm trying to get as much information about them so I can see how to approach them. Now, I will say, in my experience, it is also helpful to describe what my role and my responsibility is, because there are people who don't know, or have misconceptions, or they want a sponsor who is really somebody to just call and vent about their day, which, fair enough, I'm not it. Not me, no thank you. I am not able to offer that. Nope. And I used to, and it's not because I thought that was a good idea. I used to because I didn't know how to get them off the phone. I was held hostage. It was bad. So to be clear that what my responsibility is to them is to take them through the steps and to speak about this is how I'd like to do it. And it's important to keep appointments. It's important. And some of us, we all know it can be helpful to have that conversation from the get-go. It is important to keep appointments. And I'm going to ask that if we book a time, we keep that appointment. And I'm going to ask that not just for my time, because when I first started to have those difficult conversations when people weren't keeping appointments, it was uncomfy. But it's not just for me, it's for them. And I will explain, people who don't keep appointments, in my experience, I've not had a single one of them who stayed sober. If you want to stay sober, you keep appointments. And telling them straight up, and then from the beginning. And then if they start drifting, they start rescheduling, that stuff starts happening. I'm not a monster. There's things sometimes emergencies happen, but we know when it begins to be a pattern, that we can refer back to that conversation. Hey, this is what you agreed to. And again, we can do this kindly and with love. And it's to help you. You're not going to stay well. And I remember the first sponsee I ever had that conversation with. I didn't have the courage to be please don't waste my time. And this was pre-COVID. So I had to actually physically go to a place and meet her in person and sit there when she didn't show up, which, yeah, I can tell some of us know that one. And I didn't have the courage to be please don't waste my time, because I just didn't. But I did have the courage to be honest with her about her predicament, because her life depended on it. And she was the first person where I said, listen, people who do what you're doing, do not stay sober. You get to make the decision about what that means for you going forward, but you need to have that information. And here's the thing. she genuinely did not know. She genuinely did not know. And she genuinely thought that, like, when she missed meetings to go see her kids' soccer practice, or like missed out on appointments, and I'm not saying don't go to your kids' soccer practice, but like it was a pattern that she expressed and communicated, that like when she's, like, nah, I gotta go get my nails done, I gotta get my hair done, I can't make it, I gotta go to the dentist. Now if it's emergency, it's emergency. I have dental empathy for you, but the truth is, I'm not putting recovery first. If I reschedule it, it is inherently not the priority. And she genuinely could not see that she had not made recovery the priority. She just couldn't see it. And so me explaining that to her was what allowed her to have that shift in perspective and begin to do this thing, and eventually was able to experience sobriety that she had never experienced before. So that can be helpful as part of the conversation. And I forget to, by the time I get to this point, I'm always like, I need to ask my sponsor. So the current sponsor that I have, when I asked him to be my sponsor, we went for a coffee, and he asked me a series of questions. And I wish and like, you could kind of tell they were like standard questions, like that he would ask everyone. And I was like, man, I wish I always want to go back and ask him, because when he was asking it the first part, I was a little nervous. Even still, this was just a couple of years ago, even still. And one of the things he was like, when I ask a yes or no question, I want a yes or no answer. And I was like, oh, but like, I'm not somebody that would be doing that. I'm like, ooh. And so he asked some stuff, and so the set of questions, and again, it is for the purpose for us to see how we can best help and understand them. So the next paragraph is going to take us, a little bit to go through, and we're going to be doing a whole lot of bounce arounds. And so I've got about 2 minutes before I have to wrap up. So what I will not do is I'll stop us right there, and we'll wrap up a little early. But so what we've spoken about, I'll summarize what we spoke about. We spoke about that we are working with others. We dove into the promises. There's more to come, 12-step promises. And we spoke about how to find a sponsee, a newcomer, somebody to work with. And that first conversation about getting as much information about them as we can. And then we're going to dive into some more directions probably next week. And that is it from me.